So you let me know when you're ready. We ready? Okay, perfect. We will speak into the microphones too. All right, tonight is Thursday, October 24th, 2024. Time is 7:01. This is the Halliwell Review Committee meeting. So welcome back, everybody. I'm sure as everybody has heard that the council had voted 3-2 to keep the federal funds down to the Halliwell site. So we are moving along. So that's why we're meeting tonight, to review some things, make some recommendations, and keep our foot on the gas pedal. So first item on the agenda tonight is roll call. Ms. Chartier? Here. Mr. Ogier?
Here.
Mr. Savini?
Here.
Mr. Mayo?
Here.
And the chair is here. Item number 2 on our agenda is public comment. Mrs. Newberry, anything?
Come on, Beth, say something.
Well, thank you for being our audience tonight.
Thank you, thank you.
If there are no public comments for this evening, then we'll be on to item number 3 for discussion, consideration, and action, the meeting minutes of August 26, 2024. Give everybody a minute to take a look at them. Let us know if there's any changes. Scott and I tried out AI note taker, so if there's anything weird, that we're going to blame it on AI. But if you're good, I'd look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, perfect. I was hoping that I could get Mark and Bobby here, but they were not able to attend. So for item number 4, for discussion, consideration, and action, I have forwarded all of you the grant documents for the fiscal year 2023, the $4 million grant. I just wanted to get this out for information for everybody so that they could review kind of the parameters and the rules and regulations that we have to abide by. Currently, we're not the ones in charge of executing the grant. That's going to be under the planning department, but I just wanted to give everybody the opportunity to look at it. If there were any questions or clarifications that we needed on it, have a discussion about it and go from there. But if there's...
I just have one question.
Mm-hmm.
It looked to me like we've got till 2031
Yep.
to make final request for payment. Am I correct? That's
Mm-hmm.
how I read it.
Yep.
So that gives us 7 years.
And I'm hoping we do not take
No,
that.
I know, but I'm just saying, because potentially, if everything works, because we're gonna get money, and then we may not be starting this thing till 26, realistically, because we need funding, and then we have to go do all the other stuff, so.
Yep.
And that gives us 5 years. Thank you.
Yep. Does anybody have any other questions?
Do we know if the town has, it sounds like in there, there's an approval that comes from HUD.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know, have we heard if the town has signed off on that grant approval or grant agreement and sent it back?
From what I understand, is part of the form work that needs to be completed. You gotta remember which page this was on. We need to provide a full project budget. Oh, could someone let Mr. Nugeri in? Thank you. We need to provide a full project budget, which would essentially be the cost estimate that we had received from BH+A in our master plan, and also a project narrative, which, again, we can pull from BH+A's executive summary. And those are the items that we... No, you're good. Those would be the items that we would need to provide to get that started.
Okay. I've got a question.
Sure.
Maybe this is a bad time to ask it. I want to know about the $1 million grant for recreation.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know if that can be used in the totality of the program for the multi-generational center. So rather than 4, it's 5, and use some of that to do the prep work for the driveway and things like that. That's my question. Do we know whether that's can be used or not? And we should find out if we don't.
Right. I've been requesting quite a bit of documentation. I've reached out to the HUD grant representative for us, and I did this last week, and she needs like, I get an auto response for 5 to 7 business days for a response and all that, but, because they're pretty busy. But I have reached out to get a better understanding of what we're limited to using those funds for, because we specifically wrote the grant as a recreation grant.
Right.
So it would be more for the site work and the development, such as the cross-country trail that we had going through the entirety of the property. It would be things like, if we did decide to move forward with a softball field and have a softball field down at the property, or even the infrastructure to support the community garden. All of those outdoor things, we can use that $1 million for.
Basically, what I'm saying is, the site work was a big chunk of change on that project. If we can use that million, part of that, or some of that million, to offset the site work, which is gonna be required no matter what you do down there, whether it's walking trails or a community center, site work has to be done. So I'm hoping we can combine it, is my point.
Yeah, that's a little bit more of a discussion with the planner, and they need
Okay,
to
fine.
reach out.
All right.
Either we or the planning department will reach out and get some further clarification on it.
Is it, where are we on the
We are on the
item?
grant documents for fiscal year 2023.
I guess the question would be, if you already discussed it, I apologize, but the administration of both grants, as we move forward, we work in conjunction with the planner, who technically corresponds with the issuing entity on behalf of the town.
I'm going to be under the assumption that since the $4 million grant was being executed by the planning department, I would also assume that the $1 million grant would be executed and overseen by the planning department.
So any budgets that we develop need to be incorporated with them. They then communicate to whomever, whatever agency formally granted the monies.
Yep.
And go from there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when do you think, I know, I remember reading the emails that you've tried repeatedly. And I think we really need to digest word for word so we understand every conceivable use with what the parameters are and what our action items would be in order to at least get both entities to acknowledge that, okay, you guys are moving in a forward motion.
Yep.
So hopefully we can get that.
Yeah. I believe, and Councilor Ogier can speak more to it, but I believe that when we get to item number 6 for the draft resolution, and which he'll probably speak more to, is that we'll be working in collaboration with the planning department and the architect, so then that way, whatever documentation they need to submit, we're all on the same page and go through that process.
Can we stay in the same highway but change the lane right now? Or meaning, it dawned on me to bring up the idea that whether it comes from us or it comes from the council, we need to, I think, proactively expand the duties of this new committee, whatever it's going to formally be called, to facilitate and incorporate additional solicitations, whether it be, as I think I emailed to you, just some talking points, whether it be having the council allow us to communicate with that entity that's working on their behalf to solicit grants.
Oh, the grant writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that we can proactively, was one point that was never quite understood or grasped, was that we have the opportunity, or we should at least exhaust the opportunity to find additional, quote, free money. We have the resources, we have the time, let's exhaust and see what else is out there before we even, and in addition, remember the ideas we all had about local businesses or
Yeah.
anything else where we could get grants from any and all.
Doug, I know at one of the council meetings that I attended, or probably the last one, when we voted to keep the grant down at Halliwell, the grant writer had said that they were going to come up here and chat with everybody. Have they done that yet?
No, they have not done that yet. I think the
Okay.
plan is, they said, that was what, this past week? So they said, what was the meeting before?
2 or 3 weeks
It
ago.
was like it was a couple weeks ago. So yeah, so they said over the next few weeks or the next month, they would be down here, and that they were sensitive to the election and that there may be changes, but
Okay,
I do think it would be relevant that this committee at least has some type, whether it's, a written form in terms of what is needed. I know I've expressed that I think it's important that maybe the master plan
Yep.
gets submitted, just see what's out there. I know sounds like there's opportunities for grants there, so.
yeah, or I mean, even if, while they're here, if either I or you and I or any one or two of us can meet with them just to talk to them and say, this is where we're at, and we are looking for more opportunities, what do you see out there? So we can, whatever further documentation that they might need, we can compile that and put that together. So I was hoping that maybe we could either work with the administration so that way we can, in addition to all the departments chatting with them, that, maybe a couple of the boards can chat with them too while they're here. Take full advantage of their time while they're around. So if you get wind of when they might be
I'll let you
around.
guys know. I haven't heard yet.
Okay, perfect.
On that vein, I think it's incumbent upon us and/or some organization within the community to have a distinct description of the scope of what that facility is going to be used for. I mean, we can't call it a senior center, it has to be a multi-generational, but under that title, multi-generational, we should have a list of things we plan on doing, i.e., a good chunk of that, perhaps 30 to 40% of it, will be used by seniors during the day. Another section will be used by whoever for this. Another section. So when we talk to the grant writers, we can give them an idea of what we're going to do with that thing, and they can see if there's something that'll apply to those uses, is my point.
Right.
I just think that's, critically important, that we
Yeah.
have a specific plan, because I tried to find in the documents you sent, the original request for what we got the 4 million. Is it in those documents? I couldn't
I
find
can send
it.
that one too, yeah. I have the application that,
It wasn't in that group you sent.
wasn't in
Because I
the
tried to
most
find it,
recent.
I couldn't find it.
I'll send it along to you.
Thank you. Because that's
But,
important, we
right.
have that.
Because I have the one that Bobby had done for the 4 million, and I have the one that Lisa Androsia from Rosewood Consulting that did that one for the 1 million. So I
Okay.
got both of them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Because now that we're real, I'd like to feel better about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. We need to make sure we're dotting the i's
Yeah,
and crossing the t's on
exactly.
it. Not try to give the warm and fuzzies to the folks over at HUD. Okay, anything else on the grant? All right. In your packet that I sent along, the town council had voted to allow me to negotiate the contract with BH+A for full design services, so I sent that along. This is the second draft. I did have comments prior to the draft that I sent you guys, because I being in the field, just knowing some of the things that I would expect myself to do for a project like this, I made some markups, which you can see have been incorporated into this draft version here. The one thing I do want to call out, as I called out in the email, is their proposed schedule, so that they have, and it's a very aggressive schedule, and I was actually very pleased when I saw it, that they have 2 months to complete schematic design, 2 months to do design development, 2 months to do construction documents. So basically, by that time, according to this, if we kick off in, I'm going to say, November is going to be a wash, December's tough to kick things off with holidays and everything. So from January to August, we'll be in documentation mode, and we could go into bidding at the end of August and get real numbers and everything at that time, and then start to move forward. 2 months after August, we could have shovels in the ground by the end of October, which is really quite exciting, that we would be able to turn something around that quickly. And then they have construction lasting for approximately 12 months, and then close out for another 2 months, which, public bid construction, it's always going to be a little longer than you want it to be. So I was very pleased to see that.
Jeff, if you could, with the 1 million, are we going to authorize or instruct them to start both civil and architectural?
Yeah, that's the goal, because they do
Okay.
have included, if you all remember, Kyle Zick.
Yep.
The landscaper. They also have Pear Corporation for our civil engineer.
Yep.
So I recognize a lot of the names that they have listed under the consultants. So they have Foley Bull Roberts for structural, Allied Construction Consulting Engineering for MEP and fire protection, Kyle Zick, landscape for landscape architect, Pear for civil, and PM&C, who I've used for cost estimating. So I was pleased that it's a strong team that they're bringing along with them.
And I'm wondering should we, at some point when they start to move forward, should we just have a meeting to critique
Design?
exactly where we are today? So that, in concert with what Bob was saying, now's the time to refocus. Before, we were absorbing, and we were just, okay, we're trying to conceive. Now, we're actually taking the next step, and I think it would probably be beneficial if we refocused with a very clean and clear eye today before they start moving forward. So if we make some minor revisions, observations,
Yep.
we give it to them first, so they're not have to do multiple designs.
Right, and that's typically how the process will play out, is that we'll go into our schematic design, we'll really get down into what this building's gonna look like, what the rooms are gonna look like, the systems that they're gonna need to be sizing. We'll get into further development of the site plan, what's going into the site plan, which phasing we're keeping in, which phases we might be pulling out. Because I know in the past couple meetings, we've heard some comments and concerns about pickleball courts and noise, so I want to make sure that we're addressing those appropriately. Because at that schematic design level, that's the time to really make sure that we're taking care of those concerns.
Do we need to give those inputs prior to them starting, to give it?
No,
the
because I think
benefit?
we'll
Let
likely,
them get
we'll likely have another essentially a kickoff meeting with them.
with them, okay.
Yeah, so I've asked that they factor in that they're gonna be here at least once a month, if not bi-weekly, because I know at one point we were going pretty fast, meeting bi-weekly, so, and typically that's a good time for architects and engineers to turn things around, giving them 2 weeks to really be able to pull things together. So I think if we have a kickoff meeting, we can voice some concerns, we can critique the design to date and make adjustments, make recommendations. I would hope that, while I appreciate your attendance this evening, I would hope that more folks would be inclined to participate in the design process, because this is gonna be what I want folks to be able to come here and be comfortable and say, oh, you know what, I really like, the design of this building. I really like the design of, and then the BH+A can take that input and make sure it factors into our budget. And, because I know we're not doing a glass skyscraper or anything like that, or anything, incredibly out of the box architecturally, because that usually drives up costs. But I want to make sure that we have the doors open and the architect is listening to folks that are coming in and really have some input on the design of it too.
The other thought I had is, are we going to design to budget or design to use, and then try to solicit the funds to match the design that best meets our need? Personally, I strongly endorse that, because if we design to budget
it's not gonna end
You're being short-sighted, you're wasting an opportunity. It doesn't mean that we will be able to get 3 more million.
Right.
But we have to at least have a two-pronged approach, trying to get the money while trying to design what it is that will be the most functional and
Successful.
lasting.
Yep. And that's where BH+A, when they made their recommendation to do the 6,600 square foot building, based on their expertise, that's what they said for our town, a town of this size, this would be an appropriately scaled building at 6,600 square feet. That would be the most successful, the most impactful, and we've recommended that to the council, and we've moved forward with that. The one concern that I share is the budgetary constraints that we have currently. And there are a number of ways that we can look at the bid documentation so we can protect ourselves. So if we need to, because really the only way that we're gonna be able to save money is to cut square footage out of the building. It's not gonna be in materials, it's not gonna be in locating where the building's located, it's gonna be in square footage. So if there's a time where we need to say, you know, once we reach that point of, if we have the money or we don't have the money, if we have additional funds or not have additional funds, we can say, okay, we phased this out to be phase 1, but now we're gonna do the bid documents, so there's phase 1A and 1B. And we can clearly delineate in the bid documents that 1B as an add alternate or an or a deduct alternate. And then that way, we can really put that out and get the most bang for our buck, if you will. And I've done that in multiple projects throughout Massachusetts and Rhode Island with having add alternates or deduct alternates. And it's very successful because we have hard numbers that we know what we need to work with, and then we can adjust as we need to. So, so there are a couple different paths that we can take to make sure that we're addressing that.
So should we be asking the town council to form or put it into our charter, however, to be forming like a committee, to be somebody or several of us to be fundraising then? Should we preemptively be doing that? Like you had just said, do we have a plan of like what you would take? Should we put that in there so it gives us the authorization beforehand, or is that way too ahead of the time? Or does the town want to form their own committee to be doing that?
So that's a great question. I think when it comes to this right now, there is no, I know some communities have like a grant committee, and you know, that committee works with grant writers, et cetera. We do not have one currently. So I do think though that it would be beneficial to this committee that, you know, we can add it to the resolution. I have started the conversation with David and but Jeff in on it in terms of what would the resolution look like, knowing that, you know, this committee would still work. My hope is still closely with the multi-generational committee, right, to see how do we, you know, if there's any synergy there, is there any plans that we can bring over, you know, how can we really foster that collaboration, and hopefully some membership comes and joins this committee. But even if we didn't have it in the resolution, we could always still form like a subgroup within this main committee, but we can always add it in, I think, and I can get to it when we get to there. You know, it does talk about some new charges for the Halliwell committee, kind of shifting or, you know, rebranding it from not just, you know, advisory from the master plan perspective, but now actually moving it more towards the building aspects of it. So we can add it. It won't harm or hurt.
Do we need a motion to approve? Anything?
Motion, it would be a motion to recommend the contract with BH+A to the council.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend the BH+A contract to the town council. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Do I normally do roll call votes? All right. I'm mixing up planning board.
If you want to.
No, I will ask, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so what I'll do is I'll send this off to the solicitor for his review and comment, and then that way at the November 18th meeting, he'll have already reviewed it and the council can take care of it at that time.
Hopefully pass it.
We just need 3. All right. Next on the agenda is item number 6 for discussion, consideration, and action, the HRC Draft Resolution. So I'm going to pass that over to Councilor Ogier.
Thanks, Jeff. So as I was just alluding to, the way that this resolution will work is it would kind of sit on top of the existing resolution, but obviously expand the scope. So the purpose of this would be to expand both the membership of the Halliwell Review Committee and to charge the Halliwell Review Committee with additional responsibilities. And once I have a more formalized draft, I'll have Jeff share it with the group so everyone can look at it and get feedback on it as well. But essentially what would happen is there's 9 members of this committee now, and we can talk about the membership if we think it needs to expand or what. And then it would look to expand to 2 alternate members. And these alternate members would be non-voting members. But in the event that a regular member of the committee couldn't partake or be available, then they would have voting rights in that instance. Talks about the term of those 2 appointees, both members of the community appointed by the town council. We can talk about all that, that's just the regular language there. But now in terms of the expanded scope, so essentially the first one would be is that the HRC shall be responsible for overseeing the multi-generational center construction and improvement project and prepare recommendations and advice for action by the council, which however shall be non-binding on the council and include the following: the development of the design, build, proposal, and selection and recommended award of the proposal that best meets the town needs in accordance with the funds allocated by the town and in accordance with law. So they essentially review and make recommendations relating to plans, specifications, and designs, to make recommendations relating to estimates, bids, bonds, budgets, and contracts. Review and make recommendations relating to permits, applications, licenses, construction schedules, oversight of construction and completion, any other matter as may be directed by the town council relating to the public facilities improvements, all contracts and modifications to contracts or change orders must be authorized by the council, but it is expected that the HRC and its chair would be the first and readily accessible line of communication from the design build team through the town council during the project. All monetary decisions of the HRC shall be referred for approval to the town council, and the HRC shall report its activities to the council at least once a month, as well as any other such times as the council deems appropriate. And then all major decisions concerning construction shall be referred to approval for the town council. So that's kind of just like a catch-all. So if there's anything else in there, or we need to expand or clarify anything, we can easily do that.
Could you, Counselor, could you clarify, you used the phrase public facilities? Can you restate or clarify what exactly does that
That might have,
pertain to?
right now. Oh, I'm up here.
No, you went past it. It's on your
Too
second
fast.
page. Right here.
Is that,
Oh. Yeah, that one,
Is that a leftover from the MBR?
that might be, yeah. So we kind of used that, the only other building community that the town's had recently was the MBITF.
Mhm.
So solicitor just kind of pulled some of the language over, so that one we can kind of strike.
'cause I think it's ambiguous enough to create issues.
Yeah.
And then just a suggestion is, the word monitoring I think you need to develop what that definition is intended to mean, because it's rather a broad-based word.
Okay.
And then I'm wondering, should not the HRC be renamed? It's no longer, what are we reviewing? Are we not a building committee now? Or is that an overstatement?
So, to my understanding, if we were to become a building committee, one of the 9 spots has to be the Asset Management Commission. And then, so I think we have 3 vacancies now, is it 4?
If we add 2,
Alternates, yep,
we are now a board of 6.
6. So we'd have 3 spots,
we have
so
3 spots. and
we'd
then
have 2 more alternates, yep,
So in total, 5.
yep. So,
But
yeah.
are we no longer, what are we reviewing? In fact, we're not reviewing anything anymore, or we are now in the design and construction aspect or phases?
I think the intention, or, where I was coming from, is that we could easily call it, the HBC and the Halliwell Building Committee. But I mean, we can, essentially the charge underneath of the name, take out the name for instance, but the charge under it is that of a building committee, so if we need to call it a building committee, we can.
Well, think of it
But
from,
the MBTF,
think of it from the public's perspective. If we're trying to solidify the idea that we are building something, then why don't we call it a building committee?
Why don't we just call ourselves the Halliwell Multi-Generational Committee? And that would infer that we're in charge of the Halliwell multi-generational building.
Who will be in charge of more than that?
We're in charge of the
It's the whole
Halliwell
facility, it's the property, though.
multi-generational facility.
But it's the property, because we're also doing the exterior, access, track field, et cetera.
Right.
I just think that if we're going to make the broad statement that we did, that we are now moving forward and we are building something, then we should say we are building. Just my opinion. Yeah.
Just trying to find the words.
Yep, yep.
Well, but
Something to think about.
devil's advocate, for a moment, the fact that, here, I'm gonna steal your mic, so Doug can talk too. Just being the devil's advocate for the moment is, had we not gotten the $4 million grant and we were only overseeing the $1 million recreation grant, or would we rebrand ourselves to be the Halliwell Recreation Committee?
Well, I mean, all I'm trying to do is look to the positive and make a definitive statement
No,
that we
I-
are going to build something.
Yeah, and I
It's not a debate,
Right.
it was just a thought.
So-
I think at this point, if someone from North Smithfield doesn't know what we're doing, they've been living under a rock for a while.
I grant you, but
And I'm looking at this resolution more at the meat as opposed to the title, because, we're gonna be reviewing, we're gonna be overseeing, we're gonna be, we're still doing those charges, and keep in mind that this is in addition to still all the other tasks that have been outlined in the revised resolutions that we've had in the past, which is, still
Yep.
coordinating and consulting with all the public groups and committees that we have to do. We'll still be reviewing that aspect. We'll still be reviewing things with the planning department as far as, how we process payments for the grants. So I see where you're coming from, but I also understand where, Halliwell Review Committee, gives us enough leverage, and it's a broad enough scope, because we're gonna be doing we're not just doing a building. We're doing the site, we're gonna be making recommendations for grants, we're gonna be making recommendations for other things. So I think leaving it the way it is should be fine.
and I'll-
To me, it's fine.
and I'll add
I'm only one voice.
And I'll add real quick, the intent, so two intents. So if we move to a building committee, essentially what we'd have to do is rip up the old resolutions. And then it would kind of be like when we had the water supply committee, then the groundwater committee. This committee wouldn't have to go through the application process. You would just reshift it. So we would just have everybody take on the new committee, assuming they still wanted to serve. And then that new resolution would have to take all those old resolutions and then mash them together. This was just the intent, as Jeff just used, the meat of it was really, and the whole focus of the conversation I had with David was around being a building committee. So we can easily add, like, maybe when it says the first whereas, and it talks about this committee, we can talk about maybe establishing or adding a line in or two in there that talks about it, taking on that next step of being a building committee, so it's even clearer.
And the only other note I wanted to make is, you referenced major decisions. I'm just thinking of the future. If you're going to write it, you probably should take a moment to give some definition to what a major decision is, even though, yes, we all know that it should be obvious, but that's where conflict comes in, when you use a phrase that isn't properly defined, and then somebody makes a mistake or overacts, underreacts, and you look, well, that's a major decision, but you didn't define it. All I'm suggesting is, for clarity, that we put in the obvious, that may seem obvious to some, but oftentimes becomes blurred.
Yeah, we can do that.
It's like one of those things where if, God forbid, we get a change order, and it's a change order that needs almost immediate review, and it's another it's on the Tuesday after a council meeting, and we can't get the council to make a decision on it. And the contractor's like, I need a decision by tomorrow, otherwise I'm gonna claim a delay. Those are the sort of things, and that specific instance can be described, you know, as we get closer to construction. I see Doug's panicked look on his face a
No,
little
but it
bit.
just, I want to plant the seed.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if it's gonna be advised, and, I don't know if this is what you're alluding to, but I know when the police station was being discussed, the MBRTF had asked for just that instance, if
Yep.
there was a change or something, there was needed to be authorization of funding, but I know it's always been advised that the town and the council should hold on to that right, only in the event if there was an overage or something, like,
Yep.
because that's its main function, is the monetary aspect
Yeah.
of it all. But maybe we can provide clarity on how are those things communicated? Do we have to call an emergency
It-
meeting, like those types of things?
It could
to
be
help
a
prevent it?
major monetary decision.
Yep.
Like, the council is probably gonna go to us, well, we have the option to go with brick or hardy board.
Well, you may
You
have
know.
boilerplate, you may have boilerplate
That's what this is,
documentation
yeah.
from previous committees that you can just cut and paste.
Yep. Doug, as you were reading some things off, one of the things I didn't hear was overseeing the architectural contract. So since we just recommended that to the
Yeah.
council.
Yeah, it said all contracts and
Okay, all
modifications,
contracts. Okay,
but I can specify to, I can just say this is to include.
okay. And then one piece of language that had me concerned was the design build. I want to be very careful with using the language
Yep.
design build, because this project is going to be a design bid build. So if it's design and build, or design bid build, I just heard that and that stuck out to me.
All design build team, yeah.
Yeah, the design, it's not going to be a design build team. It's either, we're going to be working with a design team and a construction team, a construction team. So,
Well, and might be getting too far ahead, but do you anticipate using like an OPM or something like that?
it would be really nice if we had one,
I know
but that's an additional cost that is,
I know
would
the
be-
council's heading that way with the police station renovation plans to update all the systems and those
So I mean,
things.
it could be that we work with the design team and any other consultants that the council provides to us.
Okay,
It could be something like that, because, if this OPM, you know, continues with the town, there could be that opportunity. And then that way, you know, that covers us for the design team, it covers us for the OPM. If there's a construction manager, that covers us there. If it's just broadly put that it's, in any other consultant hired by the town council.
okay.
Those were the two things that just popped out to me.
And can I ask, I guess it's a question related to the resolution, but I'm confused. What will the multi-generational commission, what is their charge from this point forward? What are they to do at this point?
It's my understanding that from what the chairperson of that committee had reported is that they have completed all of their charges. So it's up to the town council to either revise their charges or be done.
Because isn't it just a clear redundancy to, if that is in fact what we have always been discussing to build and what we will build, it seems, it's almost silly to have two committees that, when one is functional and one is not. It doesn't really, it doesn't make sense at this point unless I'm missing something.
I think, I can only speak for myself, being one of five, but I think that there is still value to having that committee around. I think, you know, maybe their scope needs to change a little bit. I think what came out of BH+A's assessment of Scouters was that building needs some attention. And so maybe they can look at, you know, since this building's still a few years away from being, you know, built and up and operational, you know, maybe how do we look at securing grants over there for, you know, seniors and scouts, and, you know, what can we do to rehab that facility, and, you know, kind of do stuff in the short term there and still keep it as a town asset. I'm sure the scope would have to change, and, and see where there is overlap, but at the council level, that discussion has not happened yet.
So I guess to clarify, and maybe this is something that, with the next council, you can clarify, but I think it would be best if we understood whether or not we are supposed to engage with that committee, if it still exists, with any more frequency than we would anyone else. Or, as I think that needs to be crystal clear in both committees' minds as to whether or not we just treat them as any other subcommittee or committee within the town, or we are somehow obligated to be more closely aligned with them.
I think we're walking with a lit candle in a powder house, okay? That committee wanted a senior center. That was their major objective. We are going to have a senior center in the multi-generational, and we should invite them to help us design that building so that they can have their input on the senior center, part of the building. I think if we don't do that, we're looking for lots of problems down the road. I can't stress that strongly enough. Okay? We have to invite them. Now, if they say they don't want to come in, well, that's up to them. But we have to make a formal invitation, and the council, Doug, I think should say, we want you to be part of this multi-generational center, which happens to now be at Halliwell, but your input and ideas are vitally needed to help us design it.
I agree 1,000%. Just to shed a little more insight into that, I've already started having conversations with Kim in terms of like, how do we incorporate these two? Maybe there needs to be a second alternate as a council liaison as well to get more buy-in from the council. But I agree 1,000%. I know during the discussions of where should we build this, I remembered that BH+A had also met with most of that committee, and Linda had incorporated all the elements they wanted for a senior center. So I think advising, like, are those still relevant? How do we scale it? How do we change it? And maybe we can do stuff like for the scouts over there too as well. You know, I provide another space as well. And I think that group has a specific value to it that would be helpful. Yeah, I'm just saying if we're designing additional space.
Scouts will be fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
The only reason I brought it up is for this reason. I want to make sure that there's harmony.
Yeah.
You're right.
And we
Totally agree.
we keep it so that both sides understand their involvement.
yes.
Sides, it's a community working together for the good of the community.
Both entities, I should say.
And I would like to have their membership.
We'll be doing it for the good of the community.
Yeah. So, I mean, as we have in our almost 4 years of existence, this committee, and I am very proud to say this committee listens, it continues to react to what we hear, and we work collaboratively with as many people that want to come forward. So I can say that honestly and truthfully, and I'm honest and very proud of this committee that we continue to do so. We listen, and that's always one of the biggest things that I hope that we continue to do and will continue to do. So whether they're a part of the committee or not, they know that multi-generational advisory committee or not, Parks and Rec committee or not, just a member of the community can come to these meetings and say what they need to say, and they'll be heard and discussed. So that's what I got for that. But it's good, but I know we're discussing resolutions and everything, but ultimately, the resolution for us and the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee is going to come down to the council, so.
So do we need to formalize the resolution in the form of a motion?
I put it in as an actionable item, but it sounds like, Doug, you still have some work to do on it with David, so.
I do. My hope and my timeline is that this would be in front of the council at their last meeting, so that at least these changes, because you can update the resolution at any time, but at least these changes are starting to align with the contract for the architect, and then this would at least be a starting point. And then if it needs to be further advised, we can do so.
Okay, great.
Well, I guess I would just go on the record to move that we've understood
Yep.
the draft to date, and that we are all in favor of it. Whether that's a formal vote or just a comment.
You want to make it a formal vote?
Well, whatever's beneficial. If
Yeah.
it's beneficial on
We
the
can do a
record
vote.
to show that
Yeah,
we
okay.
listened
We
and we
can
heard.
point at Doug if it doesn't come out right. Exactly. He screwed it up.
Well, no,
Second that motion.
Strike that from the minutes.
delete the last part of his second.
You left early.
Wait, was that the discussion part after the second?
That was the editorializing.
All right, we have a positive recommendation for the draft resolution as discussed. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much for that. And as I always carry on the end of our agenda, is any further recommendations to town council by the Halliwell Review Committee? I think this evening, really, the two imperative items for them to review at their November 18th meeting will be the approving and approval of the BH+A contract, authorizing the town administrator to sign it, and then also passing of the updated resolution that Doug has been working on.
Mr. Chair, maybe if need be, we can put it as an agenda item in the next meeting, but just two or three things came to my mind while I was, one is, at what point should we either discuss internally or ask the council if, and I'm just using the word because it may be something we want to entertain, is there any reason to discuss the option of bonding? So at least we have a definitive, let's not run away from it like it's an evil word. It is an option, so we should at least discuss it. Should we also kind of prioritize internally to us and then recommendation, a phase one, a phase two, and a phase three if we had a wish list? Meaning, if the money were there, this is what we would recommend to the council as phase two and three. And then I strongly suggest, I think it's, if we haven't already, I think we have from what I overheard, is the idea of having a on-site third-party construction manager who reports directly to a representative of the town, whether it be the chair or whomever, an administrative person or a committee member, whom we can meet with on a weekly basis and will be our eyes and ears on site. It's money, I don't have to tell Mr. Chair, but it's money well spent. It's another layer of minutia, administration, and money, but it is, if it's administrated properly, the insurance that we can grant to the residents and the taxpayers that every dollar that's being spent is being observed to the best extent possible.
Yep. Every public project that I have worked on has an owner's project manager, and they're the third party that protects the town, keeps an eye on both architect and contractor. They typically, during construction, they typically have daily on-site representation to make a clerk of the works of a sorts. Yep. And then they also keep an eye on budgets. They also keep an eye on potential change orders that may come down the line. They keep an eye on insurance issues. They are well worth their value, and I always see successful projects with owners' project managers. So I would certainly say especially if we're looking at one for the police station, there could be a continuation of services. Doug, I don't know what kind of conversations you've been having on the council level and the MBRTF with an owner's project manager, but as I've said, they are, even for the little money that it is, it's truly worth it for just another peace of mind, and can save the town quite a bit of money if there is any liability issues that do arise.
Yeah, so I can just speak briefly. So the process is just starting with that. So I think Eric Army was going to help the town draft the RFP for that, or RFQ for it.
Okay.
And then that process would play out, and I think the intent was to get somebody on board by December or January. So right
Okay.
when the bidding is about to start, they would be able to advise the town as well.
Okay. And so maybe, Mr. Nigerian, from your thoughts and my experience here, maybe one of the recommendations that we make to the town council for this agenda item is that they look to expand the contractual services of this owner's project manager to participate in our schematic, our design efforts.
And at least that way we can get a working budget number for a line item expense. And if we have an entity that the town council trusts and has performed, then it only makes sense, yeah.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we recommend to the town council that we look to engage with the owner's project manager as they see fit for the police station.
Could we also ask the TC to expeditiously fill the vacancies? I know they're trying, but I think it would be best if they agreed to prioritize so that as we start to move forward, you don't want to have people coming on and feeling as though, you know, they're in third class because they weren't involved and they don't feel a part of it. If we're going to have a full house, we should try to get the full house as quickly as possible so that everybody is of one mind as we move forward.
Okay.
It is
so-
in the weekly bulletin that we're looking for people, volunteers for the Halliwell Review Committee, along with a bunch of other things. So they're doing that. There's one other thing I want to ask
Hold on,
about.
can I, I'm just going to call point of order because we have a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. I'll stop.
We have a motion, and did we get a second? No. Mr. Savini? All right, so
I'll
we.
second.
We need okay, we got a second from Doug for the OPM.
About the motion.
Any further discussion about the OPM services? No?
Do we want to add the request? Or
I think that's gonna, I'm
The
gonna make that,
second motion?
I'm gonna make that
Okay,
another
that's fine.
motion. We'll do these in order. All right, so all in favor for a positive recommendation on the OPM?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Now, Mr. Nigerian, do you want to make a recommendation for expeditiously filling the seats?
I think it wouldn't hurt that we encourage the town council to make every effort to fill the vacancies as quickly as possible to assist us in a forward motion.
Okay,
I second that.
okay. All in favor? Aye. Sorry, had a glitch there for a second. The one thing that I will note is that all of our terms are concurrent with the current council. So our terms effectively expire on November 30th. It will be up to the new council who will be continuing on and serving. So we'll go from there. All right.
Can I say
Last
something
thing
now?
Yes, you have. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Scott.
HB&A, can they give us an idea in their minds what the operational costs of that, personnel-wise, of that facility will be? Because I know that is a big concern
Yeah.
of a number of people on the council and in DPW about what it's gonna cost to operate that.
Yep.
And for a 66 square foot building, 6,600 square foot building, roughly is gonna need 60 man-hours a week?
Right.
20 man-hours a week? What's it gonna be?
So if you recall,
They did that.
we had requested BH+A do an assessment of that. And we had made a recommendation to the council to move forward with that, and it didn't move further. But yes, BH+A can provide that information. And I'm hoping the next administration, we can work with them. And, you know, and we can be able to identify resourcing and how it's going to be operated.
Oh, I'm wondering, now might be the time to do it. As a resolution, should we ask the question, is there any desire on the part of the council for us to continue negotiations, discussions with the YMCA or the Boys and Girls as it relates to, remember, we had extensive conversations about them, with them about administration.
Yep.
So,
That would still fall under our abilities of our current resolution. reach
So we
out.
have the authority to
We still-
develop that a little further?
Yep, we still have the authority to talk with them and understand how that could proceed and make recommendations.
Well, then I would encourage one of our action items in this, if we're all welcomed back, is to at least pursue it so we can come to a resolve of either it's viable or not viable, and either bring it to the council or move forward.
On that same notion, they said, they had said to us that they could always, act as fundraising efforts too. So if we're gonna go in that, yeah, that was a really big part that stuck out to me.
Okay.
So that would fall under that part of that fundraising
Mm,
person, or fundraising people.
This isn't a resolution, but just, I had sent this to you, just for your consideration. The next time we meet with the architect,
Yeah.
it might be, I mean, we can each drive down there ourselves, but it might be good for us to meet there for 15 minutes and just walk around and get reinvigorated, look at the reality that could be instead of, you know, the monitor
Yep.
and the drawing. We'll feel it again, and it might, you'd be surprised, it might either make everything crystal clear or may raise some questions. But I think it, just for 15, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
it might be beneficial.
I've driven down there a number of times, and it's really exciting to be there. You've got opportunities up the bottom. I mean, really, it's a big flat.
It's just it's a canvas
It's
without
fantastic.
waiting for the paint.
My question is, when they tore the buildings down, did they tear all the underground wiring out too? So there's nothing left, so we have to put new, okay, thank you, answer my question.
None of it would be code compliant at this point.
Exactly, when you think about it.
If you recall, the contractor had to come back and ask for a change order because there was a little bit more than anticipated underground.
I got you, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome. Before it gets colder, I would recommend people just go walk through that field. It's just
It is.
really nice to walk
Very
through.
impressive.
Just nice,
I took my
quiet,
dog out
serene,
the
yeah.
dog, tell anybody. I took Ruby down and she ran and she pooped, but I picked it up. It's good.
Hey, as long as you're cleaning it up, right?
Exactly. I mean, I know there's dogs on town property, but I have to tell her. She's
There's no,
good.
okay. Anyways. All right.
When do we,
I think everybody takes their dog there.
so we wait until January, or is there a reason to meet again until after the?
Let's see what council has to say about the contract and the resolution on the 18th, and then if not, if we're good, then I wouldn't be opposed to having a kickoff meeting in December, but it would just be coordinating with the architect,
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
so.
So you'll just be in touch.
Yep. Stay tuned. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We got a motion, we got a second?
Second it.
You got a second? All in favor? Aye.
Very productive.